What do you say, everybody? It's Mick Gillispie. Welcome to Bama Tailgate Daily. We're going to talk about Nick Saban. We're going to talk about Alabama and Jalen Hurts and some of the great quarterbacks they've had in the past and how Jalen Milroe kind of slides in there as the next guy to come along. No one's talking about Alabama's offense. Jaden Daniels stealing the headlines right now. LSU feeling like it's either going to be a close win for them or it's going to be a blowout win for them. The line in this game is only 3. And when we hear from Nick Saban, we'll kind of get an idea of what he's thinking. He does these Wednesday press conferences after practice, and then that leads us into Hey Coach on Thursday, and then obviously kickoff on Saturday. So let's get to the coach and then hear what he has to say, and then we're going to talk about Jalen Milroe and what he can do to help Alabama beat LSU, a game that is going to be really tough for the Crimson Tide coming up on Saturday.
Great practice habits, technically work on the things that you need to do to go execute. You're going to play against a good player. They have a lot of good players. You need to know exactly what to do, how to do it, why it's important to do it that way. So when it comes to the game, you're not really thinking about it. You can do it automatically. That takes great preparation and focus. And that's what's going to help you have success in the game. And that's what guys have to stay focused on. You can't worry about what anybody else says or thinks or does. You got to worry about what you got to do. And I think that's the most important thing for our team right now.
Hey, Coach, you've been a part of a lot of these. With Tommy facing Brian Kelly this week, how's he approached this week, and how's he really started to settle in as the OC?
Brian Kelly has been a really, really good coach wherever he's been for a long, long time. He's smart. They've got great system offensively. Players are well coached. They got discipline. They play hard. They play with toughness. They play with great intangibles. He's got a winning process that has worked. At Notre Dame, Cincinnati, every place he's ever coached. I've always had a tremendous amount of respect for him, and I think he's doing an outstanding job there. I mean, they went to the SEC championship game last year, and got a really, really good team this year. So I think he's doing an outstanding job.
Yeah, more so about Tommy and him facing off. What have you seen from Tommy this week, just in terms of how he's approached going against his old head coach?
I don't think anything different. Tommy works hard and tries to do the best he can to help our players to play well in the game. Um, I don't think in these kind of games you want to sort of try to, I don't know what you would call it, um, do a lot of new stuff because the players need to have confidence in what you're doing, and they gain confidence in doing that through cumulative reps throughout the course of the season. And if you just make a bunch of changes, they start looking at you like, don't you think we can execute what we've been doing? So I think you got to be a little careful, but I don't see that happening. I think he's focused on trying to get our players in the right spots to do the right things that help them have a chance to be successful.
When you watch Harold Perkins on video, what are your thoughts about him in terms of the explosiveness, first step quickness, and not just rushing the passer, but he gets out on the perimeter and makes plays to the sideline
Yeah,
too?
he makes plays all over the place. This guy's uh, really, really good athlete, really good player, very explosive. Sometimes they play him out in the apex. He's a great blitzer. He can play like star and reroute people and make stuff plays in the passing game. Sometimes he plays in the box. Sometimes he plays on the edge. He's got great first step quickness. He's a good pass rusher. That's why he's, has so many tackles for loss and sacks and things like that. But I think this guy is one of the most dynamic players in our league.
With Texas, Tennessee, and now LSU, what's the recruiting benefit to having so many marquee games at home in one season?
I think it's great for our fans that we have, quality opponents that come here and they have an opportunity to, um, cheer our team on. I think the atmosphere and environment that's been created in all of our games this year has been phenomenal. I think it's going to be really, really important in this game. I thought it was absolutely as good as it ever gets in the Tennessee game, which I think had an impact on the game and affected them. And I think it's going to be important that we have that same kind of atmosphere in this game. But I think it's exciting for our fans. I know our players, love playing in Bryant-Denny Stadium, and big games are, always something that you look forward to playing, especially in front of an enthusiastic home crowd.
Continuing with the Harold Perkins topic, what is the challenge of simulating what he does from a scout team defense perspective, and then on the offensive end, being able to identify him?
Well,
Every play?
I don't think you can simulate it. I just, players got to watch the film. If we had somebody that could play like him, they'd be playing. So they wouldn't be on the scout team. And I mean, we do the best we can. And I think our guys do a really good job, both sides of the ball, trying to give a good look, to the defensive players. But it's hard to simulate. It's hard to be that deep on your team and be able to simulate. It's one of the reasons that we go good on good, some in practice, so that now the good guys are playing against the good guys. So hopefully you got somebody playing star that is explosive, whether it's Caleb Downs or, Malachi or whoever, who is a little faster, a little quicker, and, can be challenging. And our players need to understand and respect, why do we go good on good? It's to help each other get better, because you're going to play against a good player on Saturday. You get a chance to play against a good player in practice. Challenge yourself to do things the right way, and I think it helps you get better. But we don't have somebody here on the scout team that can simulate what number 4 does, because the guy's a phenomenal player.
Yeah, you've talked about the 60-minute game and maintaining intensity for 60 minutes. Players have talked about it too. What do you think it's going to take for that to finally happen for this team to get that in a full 60-minute game?
Well, they have to make a choice and a decision to do it. All right, they got to understand the level of intensity that has to be sustained, the sense of urgency that has to be sustained, and how smart you have to be, which goes back to the preparation that you had, so that you're not making mental errors, because you're playing smart and you're playing with good intelligence. All right, so you got immediacy, intensity, and intelligence. Those three things sustained for 60 minutes to a high standard. That's the challenge, and you have to make a choice and decision to do that. And it doesn't just happen in the game. It's got to be a habit. If you practice at a high level all the time, you'll be able to play in the game at a high level all the time. If you don't do it in practice and you think you're going to be able to do it in a game, probably not going to happen. And we keep harping, we keep teaching. Every time we get the opportunity to point out to a player, this is an opportunity for you to learn how to sustain better in the game, we want to try to do it.
Jalen Milroe seems like he's more comfortable at both on and off the field, just in a more relaxed maybe. Do you notice that? And if so, how has that helped him, with his
Well,
position?
I think it's a lot to do with confidence, and I think it has to do with experience. Experience is nothing but an accumulation of all the mistakes that we made in the past, right? I mean, that's all of us, me, you guys, everybody. So when you learn from all those things, which Jalen has, and he's done a really good job of that, and you stay positive, then you start to develop confidence, because you start making plays and doing things right on a more consistent basis. And I think it makes you feel good about yourself, and it makes you impact other people around you because of the way you carry yourself. And I think that's started to happen, and hopefully we can continue to build on that.
Coach, on Monday, you outlined LSU's skill position players with so many different great skill position players. What kind of challenge does that present the defense, and how much challenging that is that on you as far as personnel packages for your defense?
Well, they got a lot of good players, and I think that if you single out one guy from a skill standpoint, even though number 8's been phenomenal, all year, so is number 11. They got some other guys. The tight end's a really good player. The running back's a really good player. The quarterback's a really good player. So what it comes down to is everybody's sort of got a personal challenge that they have to, get their job done, all 11 guys. I mean, the guy's rushing, got to keep the guy in the pocket so he can't take off running or scramble. The guy's covering, got to cover. When he scrambles, they got to plaster their guy so that we don't give up big plays, on the scrambles, whether it's runs or passes. So it just takes 11 guys that really are out there doing their job every play at a very high level because you're going to play against really, really good players. And you got to be able to play the next play. I mean, it doesn't matter when you play in games like this. All right. To me, the most important thing is the other team's going to make some plays. We're going to make some plays. But we have to play. And no matter what happened on the last play, we made a good play. We got to respond to the next play. We gave up a play. We got to respond to the next play. That's on offense. That's on defense. And, going back to Jalen, that's important for him too, because we're not going to have success on every play that we run on offense. All right. But how you respond to those things help you sort of stack some positives. All right. And not get frustrated. Don't get down on yourself. Just keep on focusing on the next play. All right. What's happening now? This next play is the most important thing, and do that one play at a time for 60 minutes in the game. That's what everybody's got to do.
Thank you. Coach, thinking about scouting reports because of Michigan maybe, but I wonder, I know you do scouting reports on offense, defense, so forth. Is there any chance that with the SEC having officiating crews that you would have a scouting report on officiating crews?
Yeah, we have a scouting report on every crew.
And coach it during the week?
Well, we let the players know that, these guys call a lot of holding. These guys call a lot of pass interference. These guys call whatever they call. It's just the historical background. It's not a criticism or anything. It's just, this referee really protects the quarterback. I mean, it's just a little bit of knowledge about what the history is. And I guess that's all a scouting report really is, right? Is history. And, I think our officials, really, really try to do a good job. And it's a tough job. I've talked about that before. My dad was an official. When I was a little kid, I used to go to basketball games and he used to get booed as a referee. And I used to go to baseball games and he was an umpire and people would be, yelling and screaming at him. So I kind of have a different kind of respect for, what officials do and how hard a job it really is. And I know our guys have a lot of pride in what they do and they try to do the best job they can. All right. Thank you.
All right, there we go. Heard from Nick Saban. He talked about a lot of things in the press conference. We're going to get into that right here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel, Bama Tailgate Daily. I'm Mick Gillispie. Thanks for hanging out. All right, first off, they asked him about Harold Perkins a couple times, and he's the star defender for the LSU Tigers. Their secondary's banged up, but Harold Perkins is like the Lawrence Taylor of this LSU team. And for those of you that don't remember LT, he was a beast in the NFL for the Giants. And this is what Harold Perkins is. It seems like he's everywhere. There's almost like three of them. And Nick Saban's like, look, we can't simulate this guy with practice team people because they'd be on the field if we had them and they were that good. He said that they play good on good, which means the starters against the starters, just to try to simulate what guys like Perkins can do. And he's obviously someone that Nick Saban in Alabama spent a lot of time looking at, and they realize how good of a player he was. He was great against Alabama last year and LSU's extra overtime victory against the Crimson Tide. He was asked about the home crowd and recruiting. He decided not to talk about recruiting, how that helped at all, having all these great games at home. But he did say that the crowd at Bryant-Denny Stadium, he thought it was amongst the best that he's seen in that game against Tennessee. He's challenged Alabama fans to kind of bring that same energy and noise and enthusiasm to the game, and basically said that he felt like it affected the outcome against Tennessee and that Alabama's going to need to follow that up if they're going to continue to have success. They asked him about, what's it going to take to play 60 minutes of football? And that's been one of the biggest issues that this team's had, right? them not being able to play a complete game. What's it going to take for them to play a complete game of football, right? Well, the answer, he said, is that you got to play one play at a time. You got to play one play at a time, and no matter what happens, you got to go out there and play the next play, and then play the next play after that. And if you do all of those things to the best of your ability, then eventually you'll figure it out, and that things will go well. Sounds like coach speak, and in a way it is, but it's also the philosophy that he's had since he's got to Alabama. And LSU fans should know, because he brought that same process to the Tigers. When they were, I don't want to say they were a laughing stock in the SEC, but they were a lot like Ole Miss, except not quite as good as the Rebels are now. They were a mid-tier program. They'd have some big wins and a lot of losses, and 8-win, 7-win seasons and no championships. He came to town and changed all of that with the process. And the process has always been do the things that you have to do the best of your ability, pay attention to detail, and then the winning will take care of itself. So he's saying play the next play, one play at a time. And if this Alabama team does that, they're going to be successful. He's very complimentary of Brian Kelly. Tommy Rees, his offensive coordinator, was Tommy Rees's OC back when he was at Notre Dame. And so he was asked about that at the very beginning of the press conference you guys saw. And again, he just talked about Brian Kelly, and he said that it didn't really seem like Alabama was doing a whole lot different than they have been doing. But he was, again, just over complimentary about Brian Kelly, the success he had at Cincinnati and Notre Dame and now at LSU, and he has a lot of respect for him. And I believe that. I think that's honestly, I think that's true. And the last question in this press conference was really interesting to me. He was asked if they recruit, if they scout the officials. And it's the first time I've ever heard him talk about this. Maybe he has before, but I just don't remember it. And he said that they do, that they have a scouting report on each different officiating crew. These guys protect the quarterback. These guys call a lot of pass interferences. These guys call holdings. I thought that was interesting, and there's a lot of stuff as far as scouting goes because of what's going on in Michigan right now, the accusations that they are out and stealing signs and everything else, and, and scouting the teams that they're playing. So very good press conference. Alabama is going to take on LSU on Saturday, 6:45, big matchup. We're going to continue to cover that here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Want to hear from you guys in the comments section. Roll Tide, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. And don't forget, if you're not a subscriber, become one. We want you to be here and be part of what we're doing.